What's going on, guys? It's Coach Steven with 15 Points of Tennis. And considering the biological differences between men and women, from muscle mass to bone structure, etc., men and women both hit the ball very differently. Now, that didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, as you can just watch TV and see. But essentially, teaching a cookie cutter, one-size-fits-all swing is failing to understand how a player's physique impacts which technique is optimal for that player. So today, we're going to break down and explore what's been labeled as the ATP versus WTA style swing, and I want you to consider which elements are right for you. So thank you guys for supporting the channel, and once you hit that notification bell down below, we'll get started right away. Now, I'm no scientist, but what I roughly understand is men have much broader shoulders than women. So therefore, even though a given man may not have, say, the upper body strength as that of Serena Williams, okay, the male physical structure gives an advantage via the lever of turning the shoulders. Okay. On the other hand, women have a much more wider hip structure as well as a lower center of gravity. They have a more open pelvis, and therefore a little bit more strength, okay, and leverage turning from the hips. Now, I'm going to overgeneralize here, but oftentimes, women get a little bit more power with their elbows slightly closer to their body, and again, turning from their lower body, whereas men, a little bit more strength with the elbows further away from their body, okay, and turning more from the top with their shoulders. Okay, so as a consequence of biology here, this is going to be the underlying theme when comparing men's and women's strokes. Now let's make this comparison visually, okay? The ATP forehand, okay, it starts with the hands both on the same side as the unit turn here. Okay, my left arm is reaching across to get this full shoulder turn. My two arms are counterbalancing each other like claws of a crab right here. Okay, as you can see right here, like that crab. The WTA forehand, a little bit different. Okay, it starts the same way, okay, with this racket takeback, but the takeback arm extends all the way far back, as you can see my racket, okay, go past my back. Now my non-hitting arm, it doesn't reach across my body, it's actually more diagonally out in front like this. So the WTA forehand, the arms counterbalance like an airplane, okay, like an airplane to balance my body out, okay. Now when I'm swinging, the ATP forehand has both hands from the right side of the body and both hands finish on the left side of the body. This left arm, non-hitting arm pulls across so I can rotate and snap through. The WTA style forehand, a little bit different again. As I swing and turn with my hips, my non-hitting arm actually tucks across like this, and the counterbalance is here instead of here. Okay, so it's going to be like so. So you can see the difference, again, between the ATP style swing here and the WTA style swing here. Just some excellent examples, as you can see Nick in that crab-like setup, finishing big time with the shoulders and his upper body, a little stronger on the lever compared to Maria, who is going to get in that airplane-like setup and make sure she finishes a little bit more from the lower body. Now, in the last video, we talked about how some muscles are used to create motion, and some muscles are meant to be still and strong as stabilizers. Okay, so let's talk about that shoulder, elbow, wrist sequence, okay, with the two different forehands. Now, with the ATP forehand, the shoulder, it loads and goes back here to get the elbow up out of my body. Again, the shoulder loads and coils, but as I swing, this shoulder doesn't move. It becomes a stabilizer and allows my elbow and my wrist to snap through, okay? Like So here, see how my shoulder didn't move? My shoulder was still at contact. The WTA forehand, the shoulder, instead of being still like this, it actually makes a circle up and back. See, my shoulder actually moves my racket back, and hence the bigger take back. Okay, now the small muscles move a little less. A great comparison example to see here is if you watch a Federer or Jack Sock, they just load and fire from right here. See, the shoulder is still at contact. Okay.
For better or worse, the ATP forehand is marked by this very tight follow through on the finish. As you can see, Nick's bicep is already starting to snap, okay, while the shoulder is still. So what you generally see is very compact swings with a ton of racket head speed. Again, the short backswing accompanied by the very short and tight follow through, because a long follow through actually slows your swing down. And it's not necessarily better or worse. When Jack wants more snap on his forehand, you can see he keeps his shoulder more still, allows the small muscles to really fire through more, keeping that tight finish, compared to when he wants more drive. He too will get that shoulder through the ball a lot more using the bigger muscles.
Compare that to a Robin Soderling or Juan Martín del Potro, or even a Pete Sampras. Okay, those guys were a little bit more on the WTA side of the spectrum, even though they used a lot of upper body. But if you go even further down the spectrum of WTA swings, whether it's a Simona Halep or a Williams sisters, you see even more motion created, okay, from the bigger parts of the body.
Now, Del Potro obviously has more ATP elements than WTA elements, but this specific part of the swing, you can see how he creates motion on the backswing. And if you look at the follow through, the bicep hasn't snapped through much at all yet, creating a much straighter, longer finish and a much more driving type of shot. And this is, again, what you'll typically see, at least a little bit more upper body wise, from the WTA players who want to hit the ball flatter and heavier, and they get a little less snap and spin.
Now let's discuss the different muscle groups and how it relates to the swing. Okay, so the strength to push and the power comes from the center of the body. Okay, so the big muscles, the upper leg, the core, the upper arms. Speed comes from the small muscles at the ends of the body, the tips. Okay, so in an ideal world, we want to use the big muscles for strength and the small muscles for speed. And if I combine strength and speed, then I get explosiveness. Okay, but obviously in certain situations, on a put-away ball, you might need a little bit more speed through the court with more small muscles. If the ball comes hard and heavy at you to handle pace, you need a little bit more big muscles. Now, both men and women's style swings should, in fact, use both big and small muscles, a combination, but the allocation of the two is going to be slightly different. Since for a lot of the female players, again, they're not quite as strong, and especially not as strong with the small muscles, the women's tennis players are at a disadvantage when it comes to generating racket speed. So we'll use a little bit bigger muscles to compensate here. And because they're using more bigger muscles, obviously on the WTA, you see slightly flatter play styles.
The student you're watching here has experimented with both the WTA and the ATP style swings, and a lot of it does come down to preference, how you like to play, what type of ball you like to hit. For many players, there is a little bit of trade-off between power and stability versus the racket speed and spin, because obviously they just produce different type of balls. Keep in mind though, whichever style of swing, you will need to have the fundamentals down pat, and if you're not there yet with your game, don't worry about this too much and just do what feels natural at first.
Since the ATP forehand takes so much more strength to control and to stabilize, I would recommend for the average player to use a more WTA style forehand. Okay, if you're not playing a lot, training hard, or getting in the gym to work out and strengthen. I understand everyone wants to hit a forehand like Roger Federer, ATP style, because it looks really pretty, but it's just so prone to breaking down. Okay, especially for the women's tennis players, if you try to teach, again, a female player at ATP style forehand, the girls already have a harder time, strengthening those small muscles. And yes, it's one thing to teach a player this beautiful forehand and hit it well, fed ball and drills, but it's another thing to handle the heavy pace you'll get in a match. Moral of the story is, if you're not built like a man, don't try to hit the ball like a man. Maybe the only player on the WTA who's able to pull off a pure ATP style forehand would be Sam Stosur. Other than that, even most men who aren't playing at a high level can't pull it off, all right? So, I've seen a lot of players, they use elements of both ATP and WTA, more of a hybrid, that's fine. I've also seen players who will have a WTA style on their default swing, okay, for the rally ball, but say situationally you get a soft floating slice that lands short, then you need a more racket speed, you'll go to ATP for that. So I've seen some players switch between the two. So maybe give the ATP a try for fun, but again, if you're training a young player, getting started recreationally, or want to win more in the short term, for sure WTA.
In summary, I think just about every player will use elements of both ATP and WTA, and it depends on what ball they're hitting. So this video is bad in a way of just, categorizing as one or the other. Just be aware though, whether you're a man versus a woman, whether you're advanced versus beginner, or whether you're a junior player versus an adult, it may skew which elements you use.
So let me know what you think in the comments below. We're going to keep going on the theme of comparing and looking at a lot of different style swings in the next few videos, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll see you guys next time.